But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hey, what's up? You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder, where I speak to bands and artists about paving the road out in front of them. There's no one-size-fits-all, no basic route to follow when you're a band or an artist. As loads of you know, the world's become a bit more transparent about how bands and musicians operate, and I thought this was a perfect time to start hearing about people's personal stories of how they've been able to make it work for themselves. So on today's episode, we got Matt Kerekes from Citizen. Their new album, Calling the Dogs, is out this Friday. The 3 singles that have come out sound excellent. It's got some really cool sounds on it, which we talk about here. Some proper clanks, some proper into that stuff. Really like it. Matt also does some great solo stuff. If you're listening to this, half of you will already be big fans, so I don't need to tell you much about it. But here we hear some stories that we wouldn't get anywhere else, I don't think. He talks about 3D printing and facing yourself in the mirror, acknowledging your own characteristics and working on going in the right direction for you that feels good. I love this chat. Really thankful to be doing this. Cheers for listening. If you like this episode, please subscribe. Please leave a review or a rating if you have time. That stuff helps me massively. So thank you if you're able to do that. Also, I've just started a newsletter called P45 RPMs. P45 is the pink slip that you get handed when you're fired from a job or you leave a job here in England. So that's where I'll be sharing new episodes, as well as some stories of my own, maybe some breakfast recipes, some other bits and bobs. It's free to sign up, and you can get that at 101parttimejobs.com. Just put in your email. I'm not going to ask you for anything booky, nothing dodgy there. 101parttimejobs.com to sign up to the P45 RPMs newsletter. Before we get into this episode, I'm going to speak with Rebecca from the band Eka, who is a brand ambassador for Ampolo, which is a free app. You can download it now. If you want to practice along with an existing song, you say you want to play bass to Rage Against the Machine, but you want to play along with it, you can take the bass out and practice along just like that. I think Rage Against the Machine is my... Bomb Track was the first song I learned to play on bass. That first song you learn, it stays with you, doesn't it?
I remember mine, which was Just Like a Prayer on saxophone. But yeah, I mean, I used to play that for hours, like trying to get it right alongside the CD player.
You sat there trying to rewind, get it to the right point.
Playing along kind of with the vocal. It's great for kind of doing covers and just learning the songs, basically.
And that's on Ampolo. It's free. Anyone can download it now on the App Store. You can record yourself so you can see how you're looking when you play it. Make sure your tongue's not sticking out when you're trying to play some riffs. Happy practicing. So here he is on 101 Part-Time Jobs. It's Matt Kerekes from Citizen. 101 Part-Time Jobs. You know, I started the show a couple of years ago because lots of friends' bands were touring and coming home and scrambling for jobs. And I've always been interested, I guess, in like that kind of element of like documenting stuff, and you know, especially to do with like music, and especially punk rock and hardcore, because there's so many stories that are like due to be told, you know. And a few years ago, I was like, you know, I've got to start interviewing bands about the way they've been able to make it work and all the psychodrama that goes into being a band. And my mum writes books, so I've always had that in the background. You know, she had her first novel published aged 45, you know, whilst raising 3 kids. And I've always found that element interesting of like the way that people make it work. So that's my background. That's where I'm coming from.
That's awesome.
And Calling the Dogs, listening to it all day today. This episode's not going to come out until like release day or release week. So, you know, we should talk about it. And like the way that it starts, like the first lyric of it, nice job, but there's no result, is so what being a band is. In my experience, you know, it's like so much, because you could talk for hours about like how much work it is, of course it's loads of work. I think there's an element of like humility and a bit of like fun you can have with that, and just like that's just the way it is, that's the way the bands have operated forever. But it really feels like that, and like that as an opening line just sets the intent for the record. Yeah, I mean, everything I've just said there, what does it make you think of?
No, I mean, I totally agree. And I think in the field of art specifically, I mean, whether you're a writer or a painter, or I do these like 3D prints, and I paint them and I model them and stuff. And I have this moment a lot when I do a print where it's like, I'll do a 3D model of like a big demon or something like that, and I put so much time into it, and I print it, and it'll be this big, and then I spend painting, and then like all of a sudden I have like 100 hours into this thing, and then I get done with it, and I'm like, you know, it's just like, that's just it, you know, and I'm like, I can't sell it, nobody wants it, it's just like, oh man, it's cool, you know, but whatever. And yeah, I mean, music, I mean, everything is quite like that. I mean, I think I've been fortunate over the years to maybe reap the benefits of people really supporting the things that I do musically. But yeah, I like that observation of the line.
So you got into 3D printing?
Yeah. I've always done 3D modeling and kind of like dabbling in video game programming and stuff like that. And I knew 3D printing was a thing, but I didn't think it was as accessible as it actually is now. And my wife was going away for a while, and my buddy contacted me about a character I designed. He's like, dude, you should let me 3D print this. I have one at my house. And it was like, boom, in my head, I was like, you can have a 3D printer at your house. And I was just talking to my wife about how awesome I think that is. And she just on a whim just went and bought me one for like $100. I mean, they're so cheap, you know, for three. She just went and bought me one for $100 or however much it was.
I didn't know they were that cheap.
Yeah, you can get them dirt cheap. Nice ones too. I mean, obviously, the more expensive you go, the cooler it is. But the thing is, it's like a TV. The technology is advancing so fast that it's like I could buy a 3D printer right now for $1,000, and in like 3 months it'll be worth $100. You know, so it's actually crazy. And so anyway, so she got me this, and it just skyrocketed into this like new hobby, this new thing that I've never experienced, and I love it, you know. And I haven't really got to do it much this year, but I am printing. I really like Mortal Kombat. I'm printing a Mortal Kombat character right now, 14-inch or somewhere around there tall, and I'm excited to get going on it. Yeah.
Very cool. So you're a project kind of guy. Have you always been that way? When you were younger, was it like building ramps to skate or jump off and building stuff with your pals and just you're a project guy?
Yeah, I'm always doing something, and I'm always trying to create something, but I'm not trying to create something nobody's ever heard of. I'm just trying to create shit that already exists. I'm like, well, I mean, when I was really young, I feel like this is maybe like one of my first projects, which failed miserably, obviously, but I really wanted to build a drum set, and I just could not. For the life of me, I mean, I was in like 5th grade or something, could not figure out how to make wood circle. So I was like, I'm going to build a square drum set. So I built these shells square that I was like, I don't know what drum heads are made out of. So I just duct taped or, clear duct tape over it. And I was hit it. I was like, why doesn't this sound good? But I guess, I always try to do stupid little things like that, and I try to write stories, and I'm horrible at writing stories, but nice job, but there's no result. It's kind of like, oh, it's rewarding, but what comes of it besides the self-satisfaction? And sometimes there doesn't need to be anything other than that, right?
Well, there's always the next thing. I wonder if that is where the reward is, to do something and, you get that second, those 3 seconds of hell yeah. And then it's like, what's the next thing? You're always chasing it.
Yeah. Totally.
And I suppose that's like what being a band is. Would it be right to like assume or like say that, those projects of like building drum kits, like that turned into being in the band, that project turned into booking that first tour, recording that first demo, then EP, then full length, and then like the path keeps paving out in front of you?
Yeah, I think so. I think, at least for me, it's just like always stimulating the creative part of your brain is important. And I do think venturing off and doing other things other than music helps me kind of reset and refresh, and then when I come back to music, it feels good again. And but at the same time, I'm still working on that part of my brain. I don't know.
Big time.
Yeah,
big time. And and all this stuff, like everyone's trying to work it out. Everyone's trying to like see what that thing is that makes ourselves feel good and like keep on that balance. I mean, it makes me think that kind of playing music and that kind of reward that we're talking about. Like, sad truth, but most things in life that you have to do, like, don't give you that.
Right. Totally. I think that comes from, the very high highs of making something that is an expression of yourself in any form of art, music, painting, whatever, is rewarding, because it's coming straight from you. And especially if you get appreciation from someone else, it's a feeling like no other, truly, whether I write a song.
That's a tight rope to walk though, right? Because I imagine when you're on your second record or third one, and it's like, what's done well before, like no one's fucking superhuman to overlook that thought or ignore that thought of like, what might people like? What might the label like? What might the manager like?
Yes, I've been there for sure. And never with Citizen really, but I do stuff on the side where I have felt like I should cater to specific people. And that was a lesson learned for sure.
Is this with your solo stuff?
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. Your Citizen, your solo stuff, it's so great.
Thank you.
It's a real pocket. I can't really think of anything that makes me feel the same way. It's a really satisfying. They're really satisfying records, satisfying songs.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and that feels good to hear. There we go. Boom.
How have you dealt with that kind of uncertainty that comes with, like, that's just like that's like one of a list, right? A long list of things that aren't massively certain. And look, I'm not trying to like wig you out here or anything like that. Like, I want this conversation to be like an inspiring one, everyone deals with uncertainty. What's your Northern Star? What's like, is there something that you do, or like one, it could be a book or like a movie or just a thought that pulls you back to who you are?
I have come a long way, or have achieved whatever amount of success I've achieved by just doing what feels good to me and not having any expectations. Citizen was never supposed to be a full-time thing. I never thought I would still be in Citizen. Citizen was just, I wrote some songs I think are cool. Let's just put it online. And that mindset takes a lot of the stress away. When I'm writing a new record or when we're writing a new record, whatever it is, and I find myself thinking about what other people will think too much, that's usually when I write the songs that I don't use. It just starts to feel weird and feels forced, and kind of going with my gut and whatever I personally really like has done me well and has done us well. And that's kind of how I recenter myself.
That's really, it makes me think of, we've all been those people going to those gigs, seeing those gigs where everyone pops off and, it's just an amazing show. And you can't help but think, I want to get involved, I want to get stuck in, I want to do that. I feel like that's a big place where expectations for young or old, but just sort of new people to like play music or putting out the first record, because you've already got that hope.
Right. Totally.
I mean, you got that great line. So I'm just looking down because I was writing down these lyrics as I was listening to the record today. But there's another one. My struggles are beneficial from Can't Take It Slow. I think that's like another one that is like, yeah, I get it. If you can make your struggles beneficial, if you can try and sort of design that or like reverse engineer that kind of way of your mindset.
Yeah, I mean, failure or road bumps or whatever just kind of toughen you up and make you a better problem solver and make you better under stress. I don't think it's good to, I mean, this might sound cliche or whatever, because I feel like it's been said a million times, but if you're always winning or succeeding or you're never experiencing failure, it doesn't make you as well-rounded, right? I mean,
yeah. You can't really, I can't really think of like the highest points of my life. Yeah, they're fucking rad, but in terms of a kind of production, like creating something point of view, I'm not sure what I've learned from that. You learn hard with the difficult times. Definitely. And I was following your building of your studio over the years, and noticing on the production of your records, and I really hear on Calling the Dogs first of all, because there's so many mad sounds. There's that one kind of a very kind of like some sounds that sound like 5 hi-hats that have been driven over by a car, and it's like doink. And they add to it so well, because there's a bit of fucking rawness in that, you know, within this sort of really well, like we're in a stage of life in music production where if you just say, oh, something's well produced, I'm not sure what that means anymore, right? Because there's that landscape has gone so wide.
Yeah.
I guess my question here is like, you know, becoming self-reliant, has that been a big thing for you in terms of, you know, making your solo stuff and Citizen, you know, making your own world, you know, basically being self-reliant in a kind of industry that's always changing? I know it's kind of weird to think of punk and rock and as an industry, but, you know, we're part of it. It was being self-reliant, was that a big part of your vision, a big part of your excitement?
Big time. I mean, I love writing and I love recording myself. I don't like recording other bands really, but I do really love producing and creating and finding, like with what you said, like it's hard to tell what's modern and what's not. And that is something I struggle with, or not even struggle with, but it's a battle that I have to fight a lot, because it could be like, oh, I need a kazoo. Here's a kazoo sample. There's a million kazoos. Yeah. But
it's a great example.
But then it's like, but then I'm just using this thing that somebody in the universe has already heard before, right? And it's already mixed. It's pre-mixed. Everything just sounds good. You know, I just throw it in there. It would sound amazing. How can I take this and make it my own, you know? And so I'll get into the mic and just do something, add some overdrive. All of a sudden, it sounds like a kazoo. You know what I'm saying? Now it's my kazoo. And there's a tangible difference in music production rather than just, oh, this sample sounds good. Like, I mean, samples sound so good now. Like, I have such a hard time telling what's a real drum set and what's not, because shit just sounds so good. Yeah. But there's something you cannot recreate with making something out of nothing yourself. Does that make sense? It's kind of like plugins, like the plugin universe. I have a real Teletronics LA2A, my favorite compressor, right next to me. But the plugin, I can't tell a difference at all. Right. I legitimately cannot. I listen, I'm like, whatever, the plugin sounds exactly the same. But if you put it through like an analyzer or whatever, there are tangible harmonic differences. And I believe this is a big argument. You can feel those. Does that make sense? Yeah. There's a difference. Everybody in the world has the LA2A plugin that's the same thing as mine, but why do some people's mixes not stand out or production stand out? Why? I mean, there's a million arguments to that. That's maybe my baseline. But with like the new Citizen record and all those sounds and stuff, we went and recorded it with Rob Schnoff, right? So we didn't self-record this one, but a lot of the sounds used on the record were self-recorded and brought to the studio. But Rob is a big, he records through a board, analog guy. So, and I think that production really shows through on the record. And I thought it was a really cool experience to do. You check the drums and it's like, do you like that drum sound? And if you say, yeah, like that's the way it's going to sound, you know? So it was kind of like no options, all commitments. And I really, really liked that. And, you know, while I was in the studio with Rob, I was so inspired and so excited. I just started buying shit sent to my house. That way it would be home, you know, preamps and compressors and EQs and all this stupid shit that I have right here. And it was awesome. I don't know if that was the answer to your question. I kind of just started going off on some stuff. But
no, I love it, mate. There's the two things that I think of: that feeling that you hear on a record, whether it's a plugin or the real thing. There's that. There's also the when you're the person creating it, that it gives you the feeling like you've used this bit of hardware. That kind of energy, that kind of, however much into that stuff, there is an energy in everything you do, everything you work with. By using something that's hardware, that's like, hammering your own treehouse together rather than someone else doing it. You're gonna enjoy that treehouse more. Listening
to a guitar track that I adjusted all the knobs and EQ'd with my hands and did whatever else and, routed with my hands, listening to it just feels so much cooler. And it could be all in my head. It could be all in my head, but it feels like it sounds better. I don't really know.
Even if it is in your head, like that, like knock-on effect is the fact that you're enjoying what you're going to do and you keep on pushing that forward. You keep on riding that wave. And so you keep on doing cool stuff. Right. It's like, it's that knock-on effect for what you do that minute, that next 10 minutes, that day in the studio.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you feel inspired and excited, it's going to translate and it's going to be motivating. And, we recorded Calling the Dogs and I got home to all these packages. Like I flew home and immediately my room was filled with packages and I just started opening them, immediately set them up and I wrote like 4 songs. It was just because I was just so excited. We just did a whole record and I just couldn't get enough, So it's good to be inspired. Even if you think the analog sounds exactly like the digital, which it pretty much does, like if that inspires you and feels different, then hey, more power to you. And if if you feel the other way, I like this and this is easier, this or that, that's awesome too. Whatever. It doesn't really matter.
101 part-time jobs. 101 part-time jobs.
Look, Citizen has been a band for a long time, like probably, most of your adult life. I always think it's like amazing. I mean, I grew up in ska punk bands with 8 members. So I think it's amazing when even, when 4 people can get along, and stay together.
Yeah.
What's it like? Have you had a bit of had a bit of reflection, being able to like reflect on like personal growth and, you as an individual, you with the other members and kind of Citizen as this idea, this feeling that you're riding or chasing or feeling good. I mean, how much of that sort of personal growth element have you, considered over the years, do you think? Or like looked at face in the mirror?
I mean, I think, early days of Citizen were definitely the darkest days.
How so? If I can ask,
because we were young and we each had we all had our egos, and you know how it is when you're young, and especially when you're 18 and all of a sudden you're touring the world and people like what you're doing. Like you definitely develop an ego from that, and we used to butt heads quite a bit on stupid things, writing credits, things, just stupid things. And letting all of that go was a big lesson, and not taking yourself so seriously is awesome. I mean, now we rarely ever bump heads, ever. I think the band morale is higher than ever, and that comes with member changes and stuff too. We do have 2 new members as of this record, and they are, just fountains of positivity and fun. When I feel like Citizen has spent our whole career kind of being a bit droney and maybe too self-serious in a way, and maybe I think it's good to let go of those things. And now, as of like Life in Your Glass World touring on that record, we kind of were discovering a new part of ourselves. And I really do attribute that to Mason and Ben. They kind of made us look at things from a different way, and seeing them come into the band with such a fresh perspective and no past experiences to hold on to, or no negativity at all. It was kind of just like, oh, this can be fun again, and this should be. So it's time to let go of any ego or whatever. So I think the band is in a really, really good place, and that's my answer.
That's great to hear. That's really great to hear. I mean, I've experienced something similar myself, where being in such a small scene, you're in such a small circle of people and bands and labels and this and that, and you kind of think that's the whole world. And I think when you're the smaller your world is, the more things can kind of pierce your skin. Maybe more things are like you say, more serious. I've always been someone who's a bit of a class clown, a bit of a goofball, and I never minded being that. But I realized, after a time, I don't want to just everyone can be the goofball and the serious person. Everyone can be the lighthearted person, but also the serious person, or the well-read person, or the someone who fucking doesn't know anything about culture kind of person. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's definitely something to do with getting older. And as you get older, your music taste develops. I've listened to a whole lot more electronic music in the last 5 years, just a little bit, but that's 100 times more than I did before.
Yeah.
And you start realizing that these different scenes, or however you want to say it, everyone's human. No one's, I guess in a weird subconscious way, I used to think some people were more important than others. I've more or less completely let go of that. I think that's a bit of a key to life sometimes, is realizing that everyone's human, and really everyone's making decisions based off their experience and their context.
Absolutely.
You mentioned in the PR about if you're lonely, that it's about having a family member or a family that you can be narcissistic, and recognizing those characters in yourself. I guess my question is is that something that through writing lyrics over these years, is it always been self-reflection, or is that something new for you, where you recognize your own characteristics, or you recognize your own kind of habits or repetitions, and then try and change them?
Yeah, I think Citizen, for the most part, besides the record Youth, has always tried to be introspective. And because ultimately I'm the one writing the words, and what am I thinking about? And I feel like as you grow older, you're kind of constantly growing. And I'm sorry, lost my train of thought here.
No, that's all good.
Yeah, you're constantly growing. And so, but the subject matter will always kind of change, because you always have a different perspective on things. And kind of going back into the last question, it's I don't really take myself too seriously at this point in life. And not that I don't respect myself or anything, but I just know that there are more important things other than the way than me. And If You're Lonely is, I grew up in a pretty toxic environment, and I never really realized how that affected me until I realized how I was affecting other people in relationships, specifically, jealousy, controlling, and just pretty mean overall. And always kind of finding a way to victimize myself when really I was an issue. And when I started to have problems with my mom later in life for those things, more things similar in nature, that's kind of when I started to realize, oh wow, that is who I am. And this person is making me feel so horrible. And that's exactly what I do to other people. And that was a big moment for me, because then I had to, consciously weed out an entire childhood of programming my behavior to be a specific way. And, and I guess, and I'm not trying to totally like blame this on whoever, but maybe it's my fault too that I kind of became like that, right? But If You're Lonely is definitely just it's a song about, hey, like, I know things used to be this way, but they're not, and I'm willing to fight to make things okay, so
yeah. Mate, I really appreciate you being so candid with that. I feel like I don't want to like push you into any direction of thought. I feel like I do that with myself sometimes. When we'll be talking about something, I'll be like, fuck, I wish I wasn't thinking about that right now. So I hope I didn't put that on you.
No, you're totally good.
Just
you're
then.
Good. No, you're good.
I'm with you. When I was younger, my dad basically didn't really like me. And they chose to like send me away to like boarding school, which sounds really lovely. But it's also like being totally rejected, like pushed away from your brother and your sister and your mum and your dad. And that's something that I've massively looked back on and looked at my behavior and like why I I look up to people so much that I forget about myself a lot of the time. And, a lot of us, I think we can take some solace knowing that like we've all had these different kind of upbringings and that everyone's like more or less everyone is like looking at those things and trying to work through them. So, without sounding too earnest, like we're in this together.
Life is a learning experience, right? So,
and you hope so. Yeah. I fucking hope so.
Yeah, and everybody has their own battles that they got to deal with, right? And that's
big time.
That's okay,
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Matt, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you coming on 101 Part-Time Jobs. We got a few minutes left. I like to finish these asking about some work fails. Taking it back to the origin of the show, which is talking about, the best and worst part-time jobs between tours. I've always found it really hard going to work and not feeling like it's a total waste of time. And I'd always smash glasses behind the bar. And I used to work at a radio station and put the adverts on the wrong days and really bad. Do any come to mind to you right now for you?
So during Citizens touring time, I never had an actual job, but I would record bands, and I would take. I mean, Citizen, we didn't make any money for a very, very long time, and we all burnt through any dollar we had. I remember one time I went to Taco Bell, and I was living in my car, with my dog Rex, and wow. I went to Taco Bell and I ordered, this is when soft tacos were 99 cents. And I ordered a soft taco and one soft taco, and I gave him my card and it got declined. And I was like, and the guy working was like, you got any change or anything? He clearly felt bad. And I was like, and I'm like, oh, I knew I didn't have any change, but I'm like pretending to look. I'm like, oh no, I don't. All right. So he gives me my car back, and then he closes. He's like, all right. And he closes the window. And he opens it up back real quick. And he's like, just take it, man. And I was like, Thank you so much.
Yes, that is nice.
But I used to record bands, because I needed any scrap of money I could get, and I would record anybody that emailed me, and I would record them for dirt cheap because I was just desperate, and I just absolutely hated it. Just dealing, especially when you're getting paid no money, dealing with people that are, kind of just like me at the time, egotistical and pretentious and kind of like, ooh, everything I do is great. And they suck. And you're just like, and I get done recording for like 30 hours and I get handed like $25. I'm like, oh, so there was a point where I started to make money. I think this was in like 2017, 2016. I was like kind of doing okay. And I didn't need to be recording bands anymore. And this guy came and he was so into himself and so serious. And you would have thought I was recording Lady Gaga or something. And he was truly in a very early stage of his writing while being very mean, you know what I'm saying? And I was kind of just like, the whole time I was thinking like, I don't have to be doing this. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I don't have to be doing this. This guy's being so rude to me and whatever. And after I finished that, I haven't recorded a band that I am not personally friends with since, So I'm not trying to shit on people who are just starting writing music, but the difference was this guy was super mean. So I was just like, I hate this guy. Why am I doing this? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And but occasionally I do mix and master things from people, but I kind of vet it a little bit now. Like, oh, I'm into this. I'm gonna mix this. But that was my failure of a part-time job, I guess, was kind of just I was accepting mistreatment from a lot of people for a long time for scraps, and it felt really good when I was like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. This is awesome. So
yeah. It's kind of knowing your worth almost sounds like a negative thing, or at least that's kind of my read, but it is true. And that goes to anyone. Like that goes to anyone starting or anyone. I mean, I was once at a studio session. Get fucking this. Once at a studio session, really young, really impressionable, still impressionable. But we were in the studio, and on the first day, the producer, who we really looked up to, was like, who do you want to hear this record? And I was like, weird question, but anyone, I'd just written these songs, I was like I was pumped up to record. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, I just want our town to hear it. So I basically said, oh, like anyone in the world, like maybe these lyrics could help someone if I'm really, 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 really lucky. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I just want like anyone to hear these songs. And he left the recording studio and emailed me and sent me a extract of Henry Rollins' Get in the Van. And he was like, if you're going to record with me, you got to be like this. And like, no one backed me up. Like the other members, the engineer that was there, I guess everyone like kind of no one wanted to speak out, right? And like speaking out can be a vulnerable thing. So I totally like get it. I get why the others like wouldn't want to be like, hey, you're being a dick, because he's kind of the boss, even though we're the ones paying him. Anyway.
Yeah. Isn't that weird how music works? A bunch of people work for you, but you feel like you work for them. It's kind of weird.
Do you think do you ever get used to that?
No, but honestly, as I get older, I feel more in control. There was a time where I was like, oh, okay. You think I should do this? Yeah. Oh, okay. But now at this point in life, it's like, I'm 29. Mm-hmm. I'm an adult. If I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it.
You seem like someone, and I get this from your lyrics as well, someone who's really like assertive and knows what they want. That's a good trait,
Thank you. I definitely, I don't like to play games at this point in life, and there was a point in time where I really enjoyed conflict, and I thrived in it and would seek it out, and it was so exhausting without realizing it, but back to that's just kind of how I grew up. I grew up in constant conflict and constant being on the defense and ready to engage in verbal battle, like all the time. That's just, and that's how my siblings are too. That's how we grew up. And that's something we have all very consciously been trying to weed out successfully, I would say, weed out of ourselves. And at this point in life, it's like, I know what I want, and I'm not really going to bend unless I'm being unreasonable, and I can recognize that. Then I'll always try to work it out. But I don't want drama, or I don't want bad friends. If somebody is going to double cross me, it's kind of just like, I think I'm done with that chapter in my life. So
great. And we touched on some of the lyrics earlier, but even looking at like the titles on some of the songs, and Lay Low and Takes One to Know One, there's a resilience and there's an acceptance on Calling the Dogs. It sounds to me. Absolutely. That's how it feels to me as well. Fuck yeah. Hey Matt, Kerekes, thank you so much. 101 Part-Time Jobs.
Thank you for having me.
So there was Matt Kerekes from Citizen. Yeah, really loved that. That was some good stuff. Every now and then there'll be an interview and I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I do this. And that episode really brought it out of me. So thank you to Matt, and thank you for listening. All you listeners make this show what it is. It's because you're listening that I can keep on getting more ace, brilliant, fascinating, fun guests from people whose records that we're loving. So look, cheers. Thanks for subscribing. If you're able to leave a review or a rating, that would be massively appreciated. That helps me climb up the charts and the podcast discoverability, all this kinds of boring stuff. But hey, this is my thing. I got to educate myself and learn how to do it the best I can. So look, cheers for joining, and I'll be back later on this week with Jen, Genn, great band from Brighton via Malta, queer punk band. And then on Thursday we'll have Andrew Savage from Parquet Courts. So make sure you come back then. Cheers. 101, 101, 101, 101, 101, 101, 101, 101, 101, 101, 101,
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.